The second part of our day today focuses on how industries transform. We have a list of very good speakers this afternoon who are going to be addressing that. We're going to kick that off today with the CEO from Allianz, Mr. Oliver Bäte. Please give a warm round of applause for Mr. Bäte.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hear that vast numbers of people are online.
I got them.
You get the tone? Vast numbers of people are online, so let me welcome those that are visiting us virtually. Welcome to everybody in the room. I'm going to talk about an industry that used to be a bit boring and is getting very exciting these days because digital is coming our way as well. And for the next few minutes, I'd like to take you on this journey into the digital future, at least as we see it. I have to apologize a little bit for my voice. It is not because of too much drinking. I just have a cold. And so bear with me. I might have to sip a little bit of water. Now, if you have a little look at the slide up there, and you look at what has happened over the last 20-odd years in various industries, you see that many have moved very quickly. Just think about how you were booking an airline ticket 20 years ago. You would go to a travel agency, and then you would get a printout, very complicated, 5-6 pages. You wouldn't really know which voucher was for what, and typically you would have red or blue hands once you have dispensed the ticket. Today, you basically book these things fully online, and the travel agency is basically dying except for very few niches. The same for music. 20 years ago, you would have a CD player. Then we would move to iTunes, download individual songs, which was really great because you didn't need to buy 12 songs or 14 or 20. You would buy the one that you really wanted, and you would pay 99 cents for it. And today you have Apple Music or Spotify to stream music at any point in time, anywhere, if you have a WLAN connection. Now, what has happened in insurance is not quite like it. You still have the same products in many ways that we've had for the last 100 and 125 years. And that is going to change very soon, very quickly. Now, while you can today compare insurance offerings online, at least for simple products, like your typical third-party liability in motor insurance product, it's very, very difficult to do that for other products. If you want to compare life insurance products that have a little more features than your MTPL policy, it's almost impossible. And that has to change. And while we have some apps, for example, how you can notify yourself, or you can notify a claim, you can track a claim, this is just beginning. So we haven't seen really the same pace of change in our industry as we've seen it in other industries that have been already transformed. Now, going forward, let's look at what is going to happen. Now, before we go into the transformation, let's talk a little bit about what Allianz is. For those of you in the room that are Germans, every fourth person in the room statistically is our client. So Germans typically know Allianz because we are a large life insurer, we're a large automotive insurer, we are a large healthcare insurer, and we're also one of the world's largest asset manager. And we've been fairly successful over the last 125 years, which we completed last year. When you look at one of the key dimensions, that's performance, our financial results have been really good. But what we also track within Allianz is what we call our organizational health. How are we performing from a sustainable point of view? And then we have something that is very important to us, because we're a financial institution, we depend on people's trust. In effect, people buy promises from us. They give us money to take care of. They trust us to pay claims when a claim happens. Therefore, trust is very important to us. So let's think about the performance dimension, the health dimension, and the trust dimension. Performance has been really good. Just recorded another record year of profits. We're the #1 insurer in the world in terms of size, and we're one of the top 5 asset managers in the world. When you think about health and property casualty insurance and life, we are a leader in almost every segment, and we have highly competent and motivated people. So far, so good. And we have a few what we call core values that in the Allianz sense center around integrity, around competence, and what we call resilience, which is not just mentioned to be financial resilience, but also ability to withstand shocks of any kind. And you may have noticed that while you've read a lot about other financial institutions in terms of reputation, Allianz, by and large, has never had any of these reputational issues that you would identify the financial services industry with, and that is what we're very proud of. Unfortunately, all of that, what I just told you, is fundamentally changing as we speak. And it's not just digitalization that is coming at us. The first and foremost item is changes in macroeconomics and microeconomics. We are living now in a world of ultra-low interest rates. Now, if you've been living in Japan, you've had that for the last 20 years. In Europe, this is new to us. Many of my colleagues in the industry have been used to interest rates for 10-year bonds being around 4 to 5% for most of their lives. And as we live from nominal income, that was very comfortable. In fact, we missed most of our money on investment income. That is disappearing very quickly and therefore causing fundamental changes to our business model, because if you earn less investment income, you have less to share with consumers, and that has a lot of consequences. The minimum consequence is that we dramatically need to increase efficiency, but more importantly, a number of products like your traditional life insurance policy, where you guarantee not just capital, but investment income, is coming to an end, at least the way we know it. And on top of that, we have demographic shifts. You might not notice, but we're getting ever older, and we need to save a lot more for retirement. By the way, when interest rates are zero, you need to save a lot more than you thought you needed to save for retirement, and nobody's doing it at the moment. And in fact, people are doing the opposite. They're spending more on consumption. In a few years, we will wake up and find out we're lacking money for our retirees. Second, we have massive changes in regulation. We are coming now out of 5 years of increasing capital regulation. We're now having consumer conduct regulation because people are really worried about how is the industry treating consumers. And with digital, there's a lot of other changes coming that has regulatory consequences, i.e., what are we allowed to do with data and what are we not allowed to do with data? And that in an industry where the idea to protect consumers is really, really important. Unfortunately, the definition of what is actually good for consumers is in the eye of the beholder. A lot of well-intended regulation, I'll give you later a few examples, unfortunately is not helping consumers, it is making it more costly. Well, why don't I give you a practical example? In a number of countries, you have the regulation that you need to print every insurance policy in all its appendices, and you have to give them to the clients. Now, we have statistical evidence that neither we nor the clients really want this, because it ends up in a waste paper basket, but it's the law. Now, we obey to the law, and therefore we do print the paper, but it's not just massively impacting the environment because we're cutting forests that shouldn't be cut, but we're doing lots of stuff to handle paper that nobody needs. And that, all of that being done for consumer protection. So this is really changing, and let's now focus on digital because that's what you're here for. The key paradigm shift is not technology. Let me repeat that. The key paradigm shift is not coming from technology. It is coming from the fact that technology enables us and others to create new services and new products that just do a better job of serving your needs than our traditional paper-based or old technology-based products. If you go to the App Store, you can basically download all the technology that Airbnb and Uber has. So that is not the point. The point is taking technology and entrepreneurship and recreating business models in a way that give clients a better product at a lower price and at a higher quality. And therefore, within Allianz, I'll get to that in a second, the number one priority is not to understand everything about technology, but to understand everything about our clients. And what needs do they really have? What needs do we fulfill today? And what are unmet needs that we should be serving better in the future. Therefore, we are thinking very hard about what does this new world really offer to our consumers, and how do we work with our clients to develop new services that better meet their needs. Now, we're not doing this out of altruism. This is not because we're trying to be good people. That is true as well, because we're on a mission. But the reality is, the most profitable and fast-growing businesses are those that have the highest customer satisfaction. Many of you have an iPhone. Let me see hands. Who has an iPhone? So you all probably know that the margin on sales that Apple has is more than 70%, correct? I have yet to find a client that is complaining about the fact that Apple is making so much money. Nobody complains. Why should they? Because you all love your products. We have to think the same way. It is not about whether our products are pricey or not pricey. Are they great for consumers? And if they're great for consumers, people are willing to pay a premium. If they're not great, people are not ready to honor these services properly. So we need to deliver great services, and technology is a means to achieving higher customer satisfaction. Let's look at the components. The new world has a lot of advantages because it allows personalization. We found that in the music world through the streaming services, and before that with iTunes. You only listen to the music that you would like to listen to, not all the other crap that used to be printed on CDs. That is the essence of the innovation that we today have. We can develop personalized services. We can really meet expectations that were too expensive to serve in the past. We can customize and individualize things, and we can make it more flexible. Flexibility used to be the opposite of efficiency. And that is the paradigm that is disappearing, because you can offer a very efficient solution at very low cost. It's something very difficult to learn for us, particularly in our industry, where we've been used to standardize and standardize and standardize in order to bring costs down. The second component is free. In the past, we were sellers of product. Regulators invented our industry. It was not clients. Regulators said in the 19th century, you need to insure your house against fire. If you start, when we had the cars coming, people wanted liability insurance. So they said, you need to buy liability insurance. Now, why do I tell you this? We never thought about our products as a means to service clients primarily. It is actually fulfilling regulation and selling product. Now, that is changing fundamentally, because now you have the ability to compare product, to pick what you want, to not buy if you don't want, and if your advisor in your village or city is not doing a great job, you can use the net to get a better offer. So in addition to personalization, you have a lot more freedom. You can compare everything you do, and that forces us to permanently benchmark, something that is really new as a word, not benchmark in terms of how efficient we are, but how good is our offering relative to the next best alternative that is available for our consumers. The third component is around ease of use. I think using the word easy and insurance in one sentence a few years ago was a little bit like an oxymoron. There's nothing easy about insurance, you would say. Now that's fundamentally changing. Today, in many of our companies, if you want a quote for car insurance, it takes 30 seconds. By and large, we need your car plate number and your name, and then we have databases to quickly analyze and give you an offer for MTPL insurance. A few years ago, you would have to fill in a 3-page questionnaire, and then it would take probably 3 hours to get you the first price point. By that time, you were already very frustrated. And that simplicity also allows you to actually think about what you're doing and what you like much better. So all of these 3 points around personalization, transparency, and ease of delivering our services are closely interrelated. Now, Allianz has been driving these things for the last few years around many, many items, whether it is around information services, whether it's around how you configure services, i.e. how you can create new product offerings out of so-called product modules. How do you think about creating new covers where we can cover products and risks that you have never been seeing covered before? How do we develop online services that were not existent in the past? And how do we create real innovation, for example, covering cyber risks in a way that were not covered in the past? And these things are happening in an organization of our size continuously and in every part of the organization. What we now have to do is to make sure that these customer-centric assets become scalable, so that we do not just invent something in Italy or in Japan or in Germany, but we can actually harness the best of these innovations globally and quickly. Now, just to give you an example of why this is really attractive, let me look at China. We have been really struggling, like many foreign companies in China, so we've decided not to try to compete mainstream with the large Chinese insurers, but joint venture with Baidu, a company that you may all know because of a search engine. It's the Google of China. They have 8.2 billion daily searches, 8.2 million post bars, and we've teamed up with them in order to access these clients, by the way, more than 600 million mobile users, in order to develop a digital insurance firm. And the way we are thinking about this is we're attaching insurance to purchases that are happening online. When people go for travel insurance, they get automatically an offer when they search for a certain destination. So we're using the digital ecosystem in China in the future. And the growth forecast you see on the right-hand side is done by the industry, not by us, are staggering. So technology allows you to also jump S-curves in markets where you otherwise would not be able to compete, because you would be setting yourself up against very difficult to beat gorillas. As we move into the digital world, you can change this game. Now, if a company like Allianz embarks on such a journey, you cannot just drive that, as I said earlier, with a digital agenda. There are many other aspects in an organization that have to facilitate such a journey that some people call a transformation. And we've given ourselves what we call our renewal agenda that comprises about 5 key levers, and said earlier starts first and foremost with what we call true customer centricity. Now, every company, every industry today says, I'm customer focused. Every. Unfortunately, if you look at the data, it's not the aspiration that makes the difference, but delivery. Unfortunately, it's as boring as that. And therefore, making superior customer experience a part of everyday life and all our actions is in itself a big change for an organization as us that was a product production and distribution machine. Doesn't mean we never thought about clients, we did that all the time, but when it came to relative priorities, that was different. And we do measure that. We continuously measure how good we are at the client interface, both with what we call top-down indicators, i.e. how do we compare in our reputation and willingness of our clients to recommend us relative to competitors across channels and products, but also how are we performing on key customer interactions. When you have a request in our call centers or with agents, when you file a claim, we measure client satisfaction continuously now. Not as good as we should do all the time, but it's getting better every day. Then comes digital. We have called it digital by default. And the reason why we've used this language is that in the past, digital was the add-on. We have our paper-based processes. We will also do digital. We have voice, and we'll also do digital. No. The future in its design principle has to be digital is the default. We design the process, the customer experience set for digital. Everything else is an on-top experience. Everything else is an on-top experience. Not digital is on top of the physical process. And that has to happen over time, everywhere. The third one, it's a bit boring for you, but what we call technical excellence has nothing to do with computers. It is about how do we price and underwrite risk. And in a world where technology is fundamentally changing, where you have enormous amounts of data, the way you slice and dice risk, how do you define it, is fundamentally changing. So we do not just have to reinvent the way we think about consumers, the way we think about technology, we also have to reinvent the way we think about defining and measuring and pricing risk. The fourth one in Allianz is called growth engines. We are a great company that has been growing for a while. However, the traditional sources of growth are declining. There's only so many more cars you can put on the motorway in Germany. There's so many more houses that can be built in a population that is actually declining. So there have to be new sources of growth, and we'd like to combine technology with our ideas to deliver services that you may or may not know about today. So if today you want to know you have actually a damage to your water pipes in the house, you can call Allianz to find out whoever is the best fixer of these pipes in your neighborhood. The last one is what we call inclusive meritocracy. We've picked a very complicated word on purpose because people do not intuitively know what this is. This is about a culture where both people and performance matter. We have an expert-based culture, so whoever was the best expert for something would get promoted. And leadership in terms of people leadership and making transformation happen used to be a second priority. That has to change in a world where old concepts about what know-how really means and what knowledge means are becoming less and less relevant. And that has huge implications. For example, we used to pay people based on outcomes, and that's what we do, but not based on how they will achieve a certain outcome. Where they're bullying their staff, or are they really being motivating their people? Sounds pretty self-evident. In a world where you have to be networked, this is really important. So this calls together our renewal agenda, and that is what we're using to drive digital transformation. Now, one thing that is very important in a large organization like ours is to integrate all of the components into what we call the single digital agenda. And it has 4 components. The first is what we call the global digital factory. As we find out that you get only scale from having more homogeneous product answers, despite the fact that we're operating in 70 markets with different legal environments, you need scale. And scale only comes from commonality. Often that is confused, by the way, with the word central and decentral. This is not about centralization. This has all to do with finding common platforms, common designs for processes, common product definitions. It doesn't make sense that we design products for the digital world in 70 different countries in 70 different ways. And new customer journeys will be designed through our digital factories, the most important one now being built in Munich. The second component is digital partnerships and ventures. Allianz is very proud of its history in all our know-how, and we have partners, distributors, but we're very much internally focused. In the new world, you do not know what the new standard or the new product is going to be, so you need to be much more connected than in the past, and therefore we are establishing lots of partnerships in the global arena around where services might go, including, as we discussed this morning with Deutsche Telekom and others, where we're trying out new services and see which ones stick and which one don't, and we're actually also deploying capital to support the development of new products outside of our organizational parameter, because a lot of entrepreneurs do not like to work inside of companies like us, and therefore we create startups. The third component is what we call advanced business analytics. the word big data is used a lot, and what is behind that is how do we really leverage the data that we have. A lot of people talk about data gathering. You might find it arrogant to say, but we by and large have all of the data that you need for almost all the services that we could develop. The problem is that it's often not accessible. It's stored in systems that are difficult to access. It's in records of our distribution partners in a physical format that we cannot access. And sometimes we have missed opportunities to get the data. So the first one is to get access to the data. The second one is to actually make sense of it. You can have tons of data and don't make any sense of it. And some of that is trial and error, and often it is working with our clients to find out what is meaningful and not meaningful. And I can give you tons of examples. Unfortunately, we don't have the time today. Let me just give you one. For us, it's very important to find out whether clients are loyal to the company and they're willing to pay for service, or whether they're just arbitraging the system. And therefore, we need indicators. When you think about large data sets, we try to analyze which clients have an indication to be more loyal than others, and we can do that through various indicators like which IT provider are you actually with today? What company are you being serviced by today is already a great indicator of what your loyalty attitude is. The last one in our digital agenda is what we call the digital demand hub. Everybody has an idea every day. And we need to make sure, even in the large companies with lots of financial resources at Allianz, that somebody sets the priorities and actually finds which things get done in which order, but also with what partner and what technology. While we are experimenting a lot, we need to make sure we have a professional process to really buy technology, to define what services are we buying, what IT standards are we logging ourselves into. And that digital demand hub has exactly that function. Again, a means to achieve scale in a world where that is really, really essential. So these are the 4 components of our single digital agenda. Let me repeat: a global digital factory, digital partnerships and ventures, advanced business analytics, and the digital demand hub. Now, the way we think about it is that we are really starting. The last few years, we have been laying the foundations, really, and there's a lot of good stuff going on, and that we will accelerate through this year. The next is really about acceleration and embedding a digital culture, which also means to bring in people that are really native in what we're talking about. But it's not just bringing in new people. The asset that we have in all of the know-how and of our people, we need to leverage as well. So bringing the two worlds together will make all of the difference. And hopefully, within the next 3 years, this will allow us to establish Allianz as a leader in our industry and maybe beyond, because of all of the things I've just described. So let me repeat, this is not about altruism. This is not about only a vision to serve better. This has a lot to do with creating an even more successful company that has higher growth, that has higher profitability, and more, or at least as important, has much higher customer satisfaction and much higher employee satisfaction. So with that, I'd like to close, and I thank you for your attention. And if I'm not mistaken, we were literally by the second on time, no? Very good.
Yeah, we're almost out of time, but I've been asked to ask you, and I think it's a great question, in the future, when we have driverless cars, will we still need car insurance?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
But differently.
What kind?
What differently? So what do you have when you have cars that are driven by technology? You have the road systems with sensors. They give you the information and the computers in the car, how you drive. You have that car product that has to take the information and actually drive properly and not run into the wall. and you have the person that is supposed to be in control of the car or might actually create malfunctioning. So you have three insurable objects: the system, you have the product liability for the car or whatever it is that's going to be driven, and the person that's driving the car. It's very much comparable to air traffic control systems today.
Yeah.
Where you have the air traffic controllers, you have the airline planes, and you have the pilots. And we insure all of them. By the way, that Pfefferminzia insurance cannot do, but Allianz can do that.
You can do that. So, but if I'm sitting in my car and I'm not driving and the sensors have taken over and there is an accident, who is liable for that accident? Is it?
Very good question. Probably a lot of American lawyers will charge a lot of money to find that out. But kidding aside, sorry.
But
kidding aside, it depends on whether there was a product failure.
Right.
Yeah, in the car, then the product liability will cover that. Was it the sensor system? And hopefully only one car is crashing.
Right.
Yeah. Think about the worst case. ISIS is hacking themselves into the steering system and letting a few cars crash.
That's actually a great scenario for a movie.
Yeah.
But still, answer my question if you could.
Yeah.
Would my premium go up if I had an accident and I was not driving the car?
No, not your premium.
Okay, but someone's premium.
Someone's premium is going to go up. In this case, either the product producer that's running, or the company that's running the system.
Okay.
Or both.
All right. Well, we're going to have you.
But somebody needs to pay a premium, and we'll do.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're going to have you come back next year and see if we're a little closer to that.
Thank you,
Mr. Bäte. Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you. Thank you. Very good.